We are live, everyone, for the Trainman Report. That means it's Tuesday, and it will be 6:05 p.m. I know that's a strange time for those listening, but we start the stream at 6, and there's a 5-minute countdown. 6:05 p.m. Here we are. We are live on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and this episode will air on Spotify later on. And if you can start thinking up great Patreon rewards of what you would pay us for, we'll get the Trainman Report Patreon set up in the shortest possible delay. We'll teach Alex about Discord and get him all modern and tapped into digital communities as we develop the Trainman NDG centric news show community vibe featuring real live people from NDG that participate
Live,
in the community,
as opposed to
people
dead.
that we don't necessarily even know ahead of time.
I like live people.
Such as Mr. Richard Hoge.
That's me.
I don't know how to say
Yeah.
it correctly. Hoge.
Hogue, but I hear
so off.
everything.
My name is
Yeah,
Holden Stephan Roy. That one over there is Alex Montagano. And then, basically, this is the Trainman Report, and we're going to get into it shortly. We're super pleased to be here. Alex,
we are. We are.
Also,
I'm looking
leave
at
some comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yes.
Engage. We'll talk to you if you talk to us.
It's we're definitely looking for people to engage us during the podcast. We try to make an effort to respond as quickly as possible and make your comment part of the conversation, of course, because it is a community conversation. And this week's episode is on our collective favorite subject, right? In the winter is snow, snow removal. What's involved in that?
I learned a lot about snow removal this week, folks.
And yeah, the reason why we decided to do this episode, actually, Holden is the one who suggested the idea, and I said that's gold. And
It's all about the
it's not
interest,
it's
right?
not gold, it's white.
Let me be clear with y'all. My blog on a good day without being spicy will get 23 views. It's not really popping. I wrote about snow removal on bike paths because, Thrive NDG, let's be real, this whole podcast is probably for you. You're the only people that really are going to care to that level. So if that's the case, and you're the target audience, Thrive NDG, then anything y'all think is spicy, we think is spicy. So I saw Neil Mukherjee post his... they removed the snow off the bike path on Walkley, which arguably in its current state is a pointless bike path. That's not the point. Point is the snow got cleared mad quick on this very short, possibly like a kilometer long maximum, private knocked off bike path, and the sidewalks were not clear, and this sparked a debate. Neil asked me, Holden, don't you think it should be cleared by 10 a.m. 100% of the time? And I said to myself, I don't know. That's a big question. And that sent me down a Google rabbit hole. And I banged out a whole ass blog. And I wrote, I think I made a coherent answer to the answer is they have different machines. And simultaneously, Montreal's a world leader in snow removal. Did y'all know that? Because I did not know that Russians and other people come here to study the logistics of our snow removal so they can go home and do better. Because we're so blessed, we can't even tell that we have good and efficient snow removal. We've just been spoiled our whole lives. And all that to say, Neil's right, there is lead in the pipes, but also snow removal bike paths make sense because advancing technology is a thing, and sometimes you test it on the small thing like the bike path before you roll it out to the everything and the brother, because that's how science works. All right, that's what led us here.
So as a contractor, right? I actually sympathize with the struggle that the city has with snow removal because I have a lot of colleagues who are in the snow removal business. They're landscapers in the summer, and during the winter, they clear snow. That's what they do. You can't do landscaping in the winter, of course. And I had a friend of mine who decided to get into the snow removal business, and he bought a whole bunch of equipment. He got a whole bunch of customers. And he told me that in his first year of operation, all he got was constant calls from customers complaining about the quality of his snow removal services. And after the first year of operation, he said, screw this. I don't, my life's too short to deal with this type of stress. And, he felt dejected,
amazing.
rejected. He said, I could never be good at snow removal. And so he sold all his equipment, got out of the business. And every single customer called him the next year to hire again to remove snow. So
That is incredible.
So I always found that story amusing because it really talks about our love-hate relationship with snow and how no matter what we do individually or collectively, it will remain an obstacle in the function of our everyday lives in the city of Montreal during the winter. And
in the city that gets the most snow of every major city in North America, as in we get it the worst over here at volume of snow amounts. All the other cities have less of it.
And Rick Hoge, you could probably Rick Hoge, right? Am I saying that right? Hoge.
Hoge.
There
It's
we go.
okay. You're in
fucked it
very
up the
good company.
second time.
Nobody ever.
Hoge. Okay, so Rick Hoge, I'm gonna get it right. Just give me some time. And you have sons, right? And I have a son and a daughter. And I remember when they were very young, and winters as a parent were like torture, because not only did you have to get up in the morning and get yourself ready to go to work, and you had to deal with all the like extras, right? Removing snow from the car, getting the ice off the windshield, but then you had to dress two like young children that didn't know how to dress themselves. So you're getting the socks on, the snow suits, the scarves, the mitts, the gloves. And so another example of the extra, I guess, burden that the beauty of snow imposes upon us.
Yeah, totally.
So saying
Elsa
that,
Marie says hi. Rick.
nice. Hello. So
I think she face palmed our pronunciation, Alex. So
Rick Hoge. See, I got it. So
Rick Hoge.
we haven't done a proper introduction. Rick Hoge. So we have to introduce our guest
is a
today,
parent
special guest.
who deals with dressing children in the winter.
Yes, but not only that, Rick Hoge is he studied at McGill University, so he's an NDGer, of course. He's a researcher in neurology and neurosurgery. Get this, at McGill University, right? The neuro, everybody knows the neuro. I know the neuro. He's a former associate professor in sociology and neuroscience at University of Montreal. That means I'm guessing from that.
Sociology?
Rick,
I didn't know. I didn't even know I did that. Wait.
Physiology.
It's an ology. That's close enough.
Hoge, physiology, psychology, So that means you're completely fluent in French.
I stumbled through teaching in 7 years. It was very rewarding, actually. Really helped my French a lot.
So it doesn't end there. I gotta really put on the gravy in there, Rick.
Dump away.
Yeah, former affiliate faculty member, Division of Health Science and Technology in Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That's MIT, people. Only really smart people go there.
I mean, Rick does sound like really smart people so far.
A former instructor at radiology at Harvard Medical School. This guy lives in NDG. You see, smart people live here. My God, I'm feeling so much better about us.
I got a confession to make. It's all bullshit on my seat. No, actually, I live in Snowdon. I couldn't afford NDG, so I went to the closest place I could.
I'm devastated. I'm totally mortified. It's all finished. Let's end the podcast now.
MIT, it's pointless. It doesn't matter.
And going on, man, it doesn't end. He, a former constable, investigator of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He was also involved with, you told me a bit about that backstory with the Sécurité de Québec, or Sûreté de Québec. I apologize. A special constable at Sûreté de Québec. Supposedly this had to do with the Oka crisis and the biker gangs.
It was a while ago. We got sworn in as SQ special constables during the aftermath of the very unfortunate Oka crisis. Anyway, that's a whole other story. Former trades master of none.
Yes.
That's Can I just
that
say
expression,
that's a wild resume? Like,
it's not done yet. I haven't even finished, man. There's more. He's got here former research assistant to Defense Research Establishment of Ottawa, former intern human rights law section of Department of Justice Canada. And here we go. He studied at Carleton, McGill, and he's from Ottawa, Ontario, and he went to Nepean High School. But most importantly to all of us on this podcast is that Rick Hoge is a winter cyclist.
I know you don't even
Ladies
believe
and
that
gentlemen,
exists.
oh my
Because
God.
I've seen all the comments
We have
that they don't
found
exist.
a winter cyclist, ladies and gentlemen. He's
real.
here, live,
It's like finding Bigfoot, except
talking
that
to us.
we got him. Bigfoot didn't get caught yet. Winter cyclist, though.
Yeah,
So-
I am the one winter cyclist, that they all talk about. What, you gonna plow those roads for that one idiot? And that's me. You got the idiot on your show.
That's
Well, I would
amazing.
never call you an idiot. I am an avid cyclist. I've cycled a lot of kilometers in my lifetime, and I have questions because winter cycling is something that I've never really done. Why?
Because it's
I never.
scary.
Yeah, and I never really I really never understood like the mechanics behind it. So these are questions I have for you. So, first question. As a cyclist, if I was going to winter cycle, I've seen a lot of conversation online that you should have a separate bike for that purpose. You shouldn't use your same
I've
summer
seen
bike.
that too.
So what? And then I'm a sweater, right? So I sweat a lot. So one of the problems I have in the summer when I cycle to work or say I cycle to get to school, and I'd be, I'd be like I just came out of the gym, right? And I how do I handle that? So there's got to be things that happen like with winter cycling. For example, you have to clothe appropriately, then you arrive to work. How does that whole process work from you? I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot.
Separate that into two questions.
Yeah.
First question is, when it comes to your bike, do you need a second bike? Should you do that? If so, I'm going to add on, what do you get in a winter bike? And the follow-up question is, how do you manage sweat and not being disgusting while not freezing in winter gear and proper clothing attire?
All right. There's a lot of answers to that. You talk to 10 winter cyclists, you'll get 10 answers. In my case, I've never had two different bikes. It depends on a lot of different things, though. Like, do you have a place to store your bike? Is your bike, is it something that you're afraid to leave outside because it'll get stolen? All this kind of stuff. I think like modern bikes, like my son, I'm biking into school with him, and he's got like a decent mountain bike that we bought on Marketplace. It wasn't that expensive. They're mostly made out of aluminum, like the frame and a lot of the parts. The things that are made out of steel that will rust they're sort of a stainless steel, but they'll still rust. Or like the bearings and stuff like that. The thing that will really rust is the chain, because that's got to be steel for all kinds of like structural and engineering reasons. But you can wash it off. You can continue to apply lubricant to it. You can get a new chain at the end of the year. They're not that expensive. It's like $20 or something. I don't really like if it's this like really fancy racing bike. You probably wouldn't want to ride it in the winter, but I've last many years I had one bike year round, and it did fine. I never really had any issues with riding it in the winter.
What about
the tires?
The tires and
tires.
the air pressure. Would you cycle normal air pressure, reduced air pressure?
So one thing I should say now, and it is, I'm riding an e-bike now because I'm old. I'm in my 60th year, and I've also had some mobility issues. I had an accident. I had a handicapped parking permit actually for 5 years during the recovery on this. I actually got I had been cycling a lot before, so it's not like I all of a sudden started doing this in my 50s or something. And I probably would have laughed at the idea of an e-bike when I was younger, that's for lazy people. But after I had this injury and I was walking around with a cane, and it was honestly, it was painful to walk. It was painful to drive. My balance was off. This was I think 2021 when e-bikes were kind of starting to be a thing. I tried one. I had actually given up. I said, all the sporty crap I used to do, it's done. This is the new normal. I'm not going to do it. I tried an e-bike, and I'm like, holy cow,
It's
this is
special.
it
can
really was, it was fun, it was easy, I could get around, it was less painful than walking. The balance issues I had walking were not, I was comfortable cycling, so it wasn't an issue. Anyway, so I got the e-bike, and so that helps in a number of ways in the winter. So it gives me a bit of so I've been posting these videos where I'm bashing through the snow. It's a little easier on the e-bike because it's heavier, because you can get up a bit of speed and momentum to plow through things that would require a younger, fitter person on a normal bike. So I do have this unfair advantage that I got in an e-bike. Now that being said, I think like mountain bikes with the slightly wider tires are good. I also like the last few years, people who are serious about winter biking will get studded winter tires, which are widely available now. And they'll certainly help you on ice. There's icy conditions where if you've got a knobby mountain bike tire, but it's ice, you're screwed. I mean, it's just the back wheel's gonna fishtail out, and worse, the front wheel, if that starts to go sideways, is very difficult to recover your balance. So the studded, if you're gonna do the kind of stuff that I'm doing, you'd kind of want to get studded tires. And a
You
comparison make. So,
you
sorry, I'm interrupt.
okay.
Go ahead.
You have studded tires on your bike.
I have studded tires on my bike. Yeah.
Okay.
I could shoot you a picture of the tires. I don't know if that works in this format, but anyway, you know what? I'm not going to punch around for pictures.
Man, it's like
No,
we can picture it.
I'm looking at
Anyone
them
can
right now.
Google studded tires, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's but the so I'll mention something. So it sounds like in a way like it's a bit unfair for me to, I wouldn't say this is so easy, everybody can do it. I have an e-bike, I got the studded tires and things like that. There's a certain level of commitment that it takes, and I completely get it. Not everybody's gonna go out and get set up with that stuff. When I got the e-bike, I'll say I kind of was making I like cars. I like to drive. I've had kids. I've needed a car. I like to do my own car repairs. I have some mechanical skills and things. But I was kind of thinking this was going to be my last car just because of all the car headaches. Like my kids were older. There's things like Renault Run for building materials. There's Uber Eats and all this. And I thought, it's just it's getting to so I sort of justified the e-bike expenditure, thinking I'm going to run my old car into the ground. I'm going to do all my repairs, and I kept my car about 15-16 years, and I just donated it to Cars for Kids this year because I realized getting a set of snow tires for that sucker the tires would cost more than the car is worth. So anyway, so I've got a certain rig that I really thought a lot about. It works great for winter biking, but it does make it look easy in a way that it might not be easy for everyone. That being said, the Bixies that they are now running in the winter are pretty much, as I would say, as good as what I'm riding. If you get an electric Bixie and they come with the studded tires, they're phenomenal bikes. They're really nice. They're heavy. They're stable. The studded tires really help. They're not a panacea. I mean, there is risk involved, and you got to have some confidence and a bit of experience and practice at it. But the winter Bixies,
so that's the real thing, right? Like, I'm real comfortable cycling, like whatever conditions that are not ice. But then we get to this snow and ice land, and it feels like you go from needing to evolve a skill set with no real ability to practice it. Like, where does somebody practice winter cycling? Because, I guess you could do it at 3 a.m. It's pretty empty in the streets in 3 a.m. in DG. But outside of that, where are you practicing? Because, like, that's my concern.
It's a good question. Like, no, if you go on the street, on the nice Bixie, they're great bikes. But if you're not used to it, and you fall in front of a bus, you're screwed, right? So that's obvious. you could, so if somebody asked me, I'd say, get one of those Bixies, try practicing on either a quiet street where you're really comfortable that there's not going to be any cars around. And if you go down, you can have enough situational awareness to know that there's no cars for a block, right? The other thing is a parking lot. Or a schoolyard. I taught both my kids to ride. We live not too far from Iona School in Snowdon. And this is like a lot of people in Côte des Neiges. I know I'm on the other side of the Berlin Wall. We're in Côte des Neiges, and this is really NDG. But schoolyards are great. The same place you would teach your kids. And you know what? It's in certain, actually, the snow like we had this afternoon on a parking lot or a schoolyard. If you get there with a Bixie, it's really fun. It's not as hard as you would think. If you're not worried about getting run over by a bus or something, which is a kind of a legitimate worry, it's a blast. And one of the things I used to do downhill skiing with my kids. We were into cross country skiing. There's so much friggin' overhead in that, right? Like you load up the skis and you're doing season rentals, and then you buy all this crap, and then you have like 2 months where the conditions are terrible. And we kind of like my kids are into biking. They're in their teens now. They like having the bikes. It gives them independence, right? I don't have to drive them everywhere. They can get where they need to go. And we all said, you know what? We're actually having fun doing this. And we're not like spending thousands of dollars on like ski passes and skis and stuff and like getting stuck in traffic. I mean, obviously, I love alpine skiing. I totally get it. It's really popular. There's good reason. But anyway, get back to the question. If somebody can rent a Bixie and just tool around in a parking lot or like a schoolyard or something, wear a helmet. If you have like some knee pads or something that you might use rollerblading, like it's anything like that is going to give you confidence. One of the things that's helped me with cycling, like I will, another secret, I was a competitive cyclist when I was much, much, much younger. I did road and track and mountain biking and even this weird thing called cyclocross, which people probably don't know what it is. And I've had a motorcycle license since I was 16. And I've done not enough crazy things on motorcycles. And I would have to say that the most challenging thing on actually anything on two wheels, the hardest thing I've ever done, both in terms of physical exertion and like balance and that is off-road motorcycling, where there's like dirt bikes, motocross type stuff, or when I was older, I was doing this like enduro type stuff where you'd go like just riding 200 kilometers an hour on like gravel logging trails and things like that. It builds a lot of confidence. I said that's not going to be for everybody, and you don't need to have done that to be a confident winter cyclist, but you do need to.
Let me ask you this question then.
Yeah.
You obviously are a gentleman who's cycled quite a bit. You have experience on motorcycles. Let's talk about the average person.
Fair enough. No, it's important.
And the winter cycling, considering winter cycling as an option to commute to work or to school. Like, in your opinion, from a danger perspective, how dangerous do you consider cycling in the winter? And then obviously, cycling in the winter is a very different when, the city crews have had a chance to go and clean the snow off, and you got dry pavement. You can actually hit dry pavement with your tires. And then it's a whole different story when you're cycling after a recent snowstorm, right? So so I guess the environmental conditions in which you're operating are kind of like they're extremes, right?
Yeah, no. So you're absolutely right, and it's maybe an opportunity to say I've been posting these videos lately,
right?
I think I told you before, like I sort of deliberately, I haven't really provided a lot of context, and people can read whatever into it they want to. And I suspect some people are saying, "Oh my God, this guy's he's evangelizing about winter cycling, saying look, everybody should do this." Other people are probably saying, like, what an idiot, he's going to get friggin' killed. There's all kinds of things, and I guess I would say the point of the videos is it shows both the potential of winter cycling, and I'm an outlier in terms of the comfort level and the commitment, but also they're intended to show the challenges actually. And I guess when I posted the first video, it was almost a little bit. I was thinking it's a bit of a parody to that Napoleon cartoon, right? Who shows, people complain, oh, these bike paths, they're immaculate, they're constantly cleared. I mean, that's bullshit, right? Like I don't know if anybody's bothered to watch the videos, but if you're riding down, for example, Grand, I ride down Grand in the bike lane. And it's kind of it's a joke. Like it wouldn't be apparent, but it's ridiculous to ride down the bike lane on Grand because it's like friggin' riding a motocross race. Like your fillings are shaking loose. There's all this loose snow. You could totally, yeah.
So again, is in your opinion, is for the average guy or average person?
Yeah.
Is it a dangerous undertaking, or is this something that a lot of people could consider as part of their their commute?
Look, it's like anything else. It's potentially dangerous for sure, right? And common sense applies, and an understanding of what your limits and being able to make informed decisions about risks, right? So I guess what I would start by saying that having winter cycled for many years. Often in the online discussions, you see these things like, oh, these bike lanes, it's so stupid. There's like 6 months a year that we can't, that nobody will use
Not
them.
Even 6 months anymore. And with climate change, it's more like 4 months.
Yeah. Something like that, right? I mean, first of all, you look at the snow tire regulations, it's December 15th to March. It's like 3 months where, legally the state has decided that those are dangerous wintry months and you have to take special measures. And then during those 3 months, there are many days like I biked to school with my son on December 21st, last day of school, and it's like there's not a speck of snow anywhere, and there are weeks and weeks and weeks like this in the winter,
right?
So if nothing else, it's totally legitimate to want to not feel comfortable biking in the snow for the the risk and the just stress of it. And
it is a very limited period, right? It's when the snow hits the ground, and it's that period like you're talking a week and a half between the time the snow hits the ground and the city and the sun. Obviously, when the sun comes out, it starts beating down, and you got black pavement. It melts away, and you start getting dry pavement again, right?
Yeah. So I think like the difficulty it creates for people in a practical sense is, if you start to like, we all like regularity, right? Like we take the bus every day or we drive every day, and if you change from the bus or to your car or like getting dressed up for biking and what you take, it's a pain in the ass. Like I totally get that.
Something else just to think about on this topic, because I wrote a whole ass blog that's not out yet today on this, is like, we're not in the right part of town to really see what the future of this is. And I think a lot of this conversation takes place in the present time. Everyone's evaluating it based on like the current thing, but I don't know if y'all remember when you had to bike on that weird narrow road going to Angrion with all the cars, and you had this much space and cars would pass by you before they built that Angrion bike path or the Saint Jacques bike path going down. I'm like, that didn't exist 5 years ago, and now it's just way safer. And like getting to other parts, like I almost didn't go to LaSalle a lot on my bike because it was really scary, and then they made a safe way for me to get there, and now it's nothing to go down that hill and be in the next part of town. And I think that if you look at the development of bike paths in places like the Plateau, downtown, like, because when I was doing Uber Eats on my bike this summer, if you saw the number of people on Bixby's out there, and now that I'm doing like the Uber driver and I'm seeing just the number of cyclists out there this winter, it is definitely a number that's going up year over year. And if you look at any kind of statistical analysis and do any kind of urban development, it's like you see that anywhere they've invested and built it, the people have come. And that's the main argument of Projet Montreal, Holden, is that you build the infrastructure, and the thing
is
everyone might want to hate on them and say what they will, but that's literally what urban development's about in every major city. You're either choosing cars, you're choosing pedestrians, you're choosing cyclists, but you're on the transportation issue, you're picking one out of them three, and that's your focus. However you want to do it, there is no other options, because that's what urban development is at a very basic level.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point you raise. I think I can interject here because this also sort of speaks to my experience. Like I said, I had this background when I was younger, doing a lot of stuff on two wheels and cycling. And there was a point even before I had my my injury in 2018 or whatever, that I kind of just said, screw this. It's not fun biking in Montreal. Like it feels kind of dangerous. I don't really want, to go around with my kids doing this. It's just too friggin' stressful to get from NDG or Snowdon down to, say, Lachine Canal.
That happened to me. I was cycling. I lived on Queen Mary in Snowdon, right? So I was going to McGill at the time. Yeah. And I was going up, Snowdon, Lacombe. Yeah. And I was hitting Côte St. Catherine and going around the mountain on the east side to get to McGill. Yeah. But when I got to school, I was so stressed because you're in this kind of like combat mode on the streets, city streets, that I just said, I can't do it. I got to school, wasn't the right frame of mind to study. And
So I totally relate to that. And I think the sort of punchline in my anecdote is, at some point later on, sort of peripherally following the news. And I was like, I've been a long time cyclist, but I've not been an activist or advocate or anything really. It just happened to be something I was into, I was comfortable doing, and I know something about it. And I thought, there's all this stuff in the news about bike pass here, bike pass there. They're doing all this stuff. And I thought, I'm old, like my leg is kind of screwed up. But I've been a cyclist so much of my life. And if you read this stuff, there's never been a better time to get around on a bike. So I drank the Kool-Aid, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to do this. And,
that rabbit hole, right? That Holden went down.
Well, sorry. Oh yeah. Well, no, but I thought, oh man, it's going to be, and even it sort of came to a head like this year. It's my younger son who goes to school in NDG is like, Dad, I want to bike to school. And I knew also because of the horrible construction there that the traffic is going to be, and I'm like, there's no friggin' way I'm driving you in. And you probably know that the bus service between, say, Snowdon and some of the NDG schools, like it's nutty. It's a little far to walk. You could walk it. The bus would just be stupid. You'd be stuck in traffic.
I used to have to take the 51 from Fielding up by Rosedale parts to Snowdon. That passes by 2 schools. And that is a lot of slow, just so much slow, especially in the winter.
So
it's not good.
What hit me was, I'm like, okay, the school's 2 kilometers away. This is great. I'm really happy you want to bike. Let's do it. And he hadn't been biking much in COVID, so I said, I'll even go with you. And they were like, how the hell are we going to get across to Carey? I know people say, oh, there's Bourget or Bourget. What's the one to the north? Which is controversial. Bourget. And they're the ones like further south in at NDG or Côte Saint Antoine or whatever. But it's like, if you're driving, you're not gonna be going that distance up or down to get across the street. Anyway, so we figured it out and we get there, but I'm like, holy, it's not this utopia of cycling that that's described. There's some really hairy shit that you got to do to get from from a residential neighborhood within the borough to a school that's really close to it. And of course it's DeCarey, right? So there's DeCarey to me is like a massive scar or a cut. It has been cut through the borough and the trench, whatever you want to call it. It is the air quality around the Carey Expressway is one of the worst in the country, right? And it divides us, the Côte des Neiges and NDG parts. Yeah, it's I realized that more this year. It's I've never been judgmental about it or whatever. It was there when we moved here, and
Right.
Certainly it's nice living close to there if you're driving, because there are these on ramps and you just get out of town real easy. But the impact on it does have this impact, and there's just no. And I mean, the other thing is the Côte Saint Luc de Carry intersection for pedestrians. That's just friggin' insane, right? Like, if you're a pedestrian, here's a story. My kids used to do these, like they were at Royalvale. Shouldn't talk too much details about the kids on when we have millions and millions.
It's yeah, millions and millions. Oh, good. We're all family.
Yeah,
here.
all three. So please, the three people who are watching, like, that stays between us. But so they would have these. So there's a great gym teacher there, Mr. Katz, who probably a lot of people know. Every year they would do like a bicycle day in phys ed, and the kids are really excited. My kids want to bike in. And I remember, one of my kids is really like wants to do it. It's like, we're going to bike there and we're going to bike home and we're going to do the whole way. And so we're coming back. And we're like on Côte Saint Luc, and it's like, we've got to go through DeCarry. And I was just kind of thinking, well, we'll get off the bikes and we'll walk. And I was like, oh, wait a second, you can't, because there's this fence there and you got to go here and here. And we ended up, so the right thing to do, right, is for you to get to the other side of the right turn lane between the two lanes of traffic. I mean, that's what the CSR, the Code de Sécurité Routière says you're supposed to do. You're allowed to get over to the left side of a right turn lane, and then you proceed straight. And so we did this, and my son was younger, like he's grade school age, and the drivers were flipping out. They were like honking and they were like making all these gestures, and like, fuck, that's the way you get through this intersection. What do you want? So a lot of my thing, like with the videos and that, is I'm just a guy who's riding a bike. I'm using the available infrastructure to do it. I'm not complaining. I'm obeying all of the traffic laws, and this is what it looks like. Sometimes it looks sort of crazy, and I don't think a lot of people would do it.
I just want to add like one more thing. I know there are bike lanes, but as a cyclist, you have zero obligation to use the bike lanes. You're just allowed to drive on the street, like with the cars. Like, you can just go on Sherbrooke. You're allowed. That's
yes, you are.
Yeah, I think that there are situations like some of the bike lanes may have posted speed limits, and if it's your intention to ride at a faster speed, for example, which you can do on an e-bike, but that antagonizes people too, right? There's like, oh, they have these bike lanes and they're not using
it.
I've seen that.
I've done Uber Eats on the bicycle, right? So like, there's just circumstances where, like, believe it or not, folks out there, your Uber Eats cycle guy is getting your food to you quicker every single time, for the most part. You know why? Because that guy don't look for parking. And you know what makes your Uber Eats take a hot minute? Looking for parking and things of that nature. Especially if you live
it's got to be stressful, like, doing that in a car. Like, because the guys are all double parking, they have to. It's
and you gotta risk tickets, but all that to say, so like, sometimes I would get the food 11 minutes later, be there. But like, the way that Uber Eats and these apps work is proximity to the store matters for you to get priority on the order. So if you're on Maisonneuve on a bike path, you're too far from Sherbrooke to get dinged. If you're on Terrebonne on a bike path, you're too far from Sherbrooke to get dinged and actually get your work. So if you're a delivery person, you're going to end up on the main arteries because that's where the work is. Whether or not people like it. Yeah. And then you have all your couriers and stuff who have just work. That's what they do. And yes, sometimes it's convenient, but if you're getting paid to be fast, going 2 minutes out your way each direction, because that's how long it takes to go. Maybe a minute to cycle up from Sherbrooke to Maisonneuve, then a whole other minute to come back. When you're on the clock for money, that's lost time for no good reason except to make some drivers feel better about themselves. You're not even violating the law in the first place.
Adding to that, what Holden is saying, the current main theory or main consensus in urban development for cyclists is that the cycle lanes need to be on arterial streets, right? Or they need to be very central for the reasons that Holden explained. So there is a push or an idea of putting a bike path along Sherbrooke. I can understand the reasons for that. I cycle on Sherbrooke because what happens where I live, I'm on the west side.
Alex.
I'm on the west side of NDG, so
Mhm.
I have to drive downhill to get to the bike path in Maisonneuve. Then I have to climb back up, and like, why would I put myself
Yeah,
through
yeah.
that?
Like, I
Right?
don't think people realize that the hill next to Grand Boulevard on Maisonneuve's bike path, when you have to go, it's like steep. It took me, it was not like, it took me years to be able to hit that hill at the start of a cycle season. I used to have to get up and walk that at the beginning of cycle season, then get back on, because it's not actually a hill that you can just easily do unless you're in relatively good shape.
And
So
that
it's
that
like,
yeah,
and I
and that's
just don't
the
think like it's like that's not simple for everyone to
no.
just do, because uphill bicycling can wreck you and make you as sweaty as Alex was talking about out of nowhere.
I'm a sweaty guy. I'm just saying. I'm just gonna put that on the table. I sweat. If it's
I'm
just slightly
and I'm
warm
not
and I
Yeah,
start
like
no,
moving, I start
yeah.
sweating.
No, that's one of the big drawbacks. I mean, people is sort of like if you go to work in a suit, how are you going to do that on a bike? What happens if it rains? Things like that. Those are like completely
so you
understandable
can put the
concerns.
suit onto your backpack and you with the hanger, you put it in a garbage bag and you keep it. That's how I did it.
Yeah. But I guess like that whole point about being obligated to ride on bike paths or not. I wasn't sure if you were talking about if there's a bike path on a street, can you just ride on that street instead of in the bike path? I think I would generally ride in the bike path, but for sure, depending on where you need to
But
go,
like,
you're gonna
I've
have
had
to.
it I've definitely made the mistake of turning onto Côte St. Catherine as onto where the drivers go, and then seeing the bike path and going, and then now I'm on the street and I have to cut over, but I got to go a block before I can do so. So like,
Yeah.
there's moments.
I think what's happening too is
I
that
digress. That's like really specific.
yeah. But back on cycling, I think like, and I want to get back on the snow. But I think that when it comes to cycling or snow cycling, let's talk about that. I think what's happening is that as as a community, as cities are going through a process of transformation, we're going through this phase now where the cities are starting to invest in other modes of transportation other than automobiles, because there's this general consensus out there, and I agree with this consensus, is that the use of the automobile is in many ways killing cities, because what's happened is that we've got so much traffic, so much congestion that people can't get around anymore
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's just total gridlock. And
yeah,
then if you have the chance, which I had the unfortunate chance of living beside something like the Carry Expressway. I lived on Lacombe Avenue, corner Lemieux, and I know in my summers, you would go outside and it was like almost you could feel the dust and the pollution
yeah.
raining on you. It would be on your windows. Your windows would get black. So this is not good. But at the same time, people would argue, okay, we're starting to electrify automobiles, right? So that's going to reduce pollution.
But that's not really implementable right now. Like, you mean like it's that's a people who own houses thing. Cause like, where's the closest electronic? I just went through the car buying process, right? And the closest electronic car chargers to me are like a 10-minute walk.
Right.
And nobody's walking 10 minutes in weather like today to go home if they can avoid it. And that's the only option to charge my car at that point, unless I want to go deal with superchargers and things like that. But they don't have them on island. So you're kind of stuck with these street ones. Actually, a fun fact. Do you want to tell how affluent a neighborhood is? Google the location of electronic car chargers on the streets. If you see a whole lot of them appear, money.
Yeah. Yeah, those things are not cheap. And I'm some like our last I bought used cars, right? You can get a used, it's always been the case. You could get a used car for like 10 grand or 5 grand, or whatever. And, like the cost of entry into being a car owner was very low. You could get on street parking. They're cheap to insure. They're cheap to buy. And that seems like it's evaporating with the cost. Like, who knows what the used market for electric cars
It's trash.
is going to be like.
No, right now we're discovering it. So a lot of these batteries have a 7-year or 8-year lifespan and cost something like 15 to 17 grand. No, I think it's 18 grand to replace in current pricing. They only expect that to drop a couple $1,000s over the next 5 years or so. So basically, if you're buying a used electronic car right now, you're inheriting a $15,000 bomb that's going to go off in your life at some point when you got to replace that battery. Also,
Yeah.
shout out Andy, who's been commenting. He says, Alex, car independence also creates more distance between people and where they need to be, and made some comments on the Minto village.
Yeah. So yeah, the Minto being destroyed because of the construction of the Kerry Expressway. But back on the snow.
Yeah.
I just wanna like go over the not necessarily the politics, or more like the machine of snow removal. If you look, it's on the agenda where I talk about snow, garbage, and money. And if you look at the ticket items that a city has to deal, the most expensive ticket items that the city has to deal with in terms of delivering services, the biggest ticket items are, believe it or not, garbage removal and snow removal. Snow removal is right up there. And the way right now that the city of Montreal snow removal services are organized is that the snow removal services for the borough, for the entire city, are controlled by the central city. That was consolidated under the Coderre administration. Before the Coderre administrations, the boroughs had budgets to remove snow. And what happened was Coderre didn't like how the system was operating. He thought it wasn't efficient. It wasn't operating properly. There was fighting between the boroughs, and there was inconsistency in the level of service. So he said, "Okay, I'm just taking control of this." Through that process, $17 million was taken away from CDNDG from our borough budget, because that was the money that was used for the snow removal services. Now, moving ahead, the borough still is still responsible for removing the snow from the sidewalks, but not from removing the snow from the sidewalks. When they have the trucks come and they remove the snow, that's a central city cost, because it's part of the snow removal operation, right? And bike pass. Okay, here we go. Are you ready for this one? The boroughs receive monies. Okay, they're responsible. The boroughs are responsible for the snow removal services of bike pass. When you look at the formula, the boroughs identify to the central city what their bike path network is, and they get money per kilometer, right, for the bike paths they have in their borough. I think it's per kilometer, per meter. I can't remember which is what's, it's some sort of formula they have. And they get extra money from the city for snow removal, right, for the 4-season bike pass. So not all the bike paths in CDNDG are 4 seasons. Yeah. So those bike paths that have identified as 4 seasons, the borough is subcontracting to a third party to remove snow from these bike paths. So when people compare the bike path snow removal, compared to sidewalks or the streets, it's 2 different animals. And believe it or not, in the plateau,
but Alex, it shouldn't be 2 different animals. I don't want to hear about the contracts anymore.
I'm not here to pass judgment. I'm just telling you how it works. Okay.
Shoot the messenger. Shoot the messenger.
Yeah. And if people, we could talk a little bit more about the hate on for like snow removal, winter bike cycling. And how that's sort of like a lightning rod for people to vent on, like the Projet Montréal administration that's become, intrinsically tied to, the idea of winter cycling.
Like when you have something that's so drastically small, it's pretty easy to bang that shit out one time. And then I don't think people have ever actually thought about how much sidewalk there is to remove. How many machines are required to accomplish that goal? Just, if it's like, what, a kilometer and a half from Clos Saint Luc Road to Maisonneuve, and there's like 15 to 30 of those like streets, that's a lot of kilometers in just one little block area. And then you got all the block areas in the whole city.
Yeah, so I just want to end on like the money part, right? So, the borough of Montreal, that borough, they actually also subcontract. I ran into it last summer. They actually have a mini street cleaner just for the bike path. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And but I'll just finish the little tidbit on the money and the budget for the snow removal operations. Like I mentioned before, nobody is ever really satisfied with snow removal services because no matter what we do, right? Like I mentioned earlier, individually or collectively, it's still going to be an obstacle, right? It's in our way. Snow is very much like that. And then the second aspect, though, is I wasn't really happy with the new arrangement from a borough perspective, because what happened was that when they took our money away, right, $17 million a year that we got for snow removal. I remember back in the Applebaum days when we had a mild winter, right? The surplus of that fund was kept by the borough and was reinvested in the community, right? Where now, if there's a mild winter, the central city keeps it all. But there's a kicker. The kicker is that if we have a particularly bad winter, right, and there's more than a certain amount of street cleanups, when the trucks come, they pick up the snow and they track it off, the central city charges back the borough for the extra costs incurred, right?
Heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is that? And again, right, when we talk about money and budgetary issues in the borough, we never hear these conversations being discussed in the public realm. It always seems to happen behind closed doors, and that
the public conversation is wildly sensationalized to an emotional reaction to whatever the hell your team is.
I don't like that deal, and again, this is what I was communicated by the civil servants. But when I heard the nature of that deal, I was like, huh? That doesn't make sense to me. And so I gave Lionel Perez a hard time about that, and publicly. And so that's kind of like the history of snow removal services and where we're at right now. So
it doesn't necessarily address the whole why does the bike paths get done first debate that everyone's mad at, to which the answer is specialized machines. That's the real answer. They're just
I just think that you're subcontracting the sidewalk. The bike path, right, to a contractor. He's got a truck. He doesn't have to worry about carting the snow away. All he has to do is push it away. And it's a level.
Actually, they drop this salt solution and melt the snow. It's like it's a wildly cool machine. It crunches up the snow like a snow blower, and then it sprays a salt solution on the snow. So it's not actually pushing the snow away like you think. It's kind of a revolutionary approach to snow removal, and it's a technological fucking wonder, all things considered. It's just probably not scalable to all fucking things because, unfortunately, I think that all the bike paths are standardized or something or relatively close in size, because the machine is closed network.
I've never seen it.
Size.
If anybody's listening to this podcast,
I only found it
and
on
actually
the internet.
Sees it in operation, please take a video, because I guess that the logic.
And then the rest of it, though, is the plow typical network where it has to almost be done in a particular order. Otherwise, like it could create inefficiencies and fuck shit up. And then you kind of have to do all the one sides of the streets before the other ones. And then, yes, the sidewalks need to get done. But, getting all of the sidewalks done immediately or by a time period is impossible for the city. Why? Because we ain't paying for it. Y'all are going to not accept that tax increase to handle that budget. Y'all are going to say no. You're just not going to do it. You're going to think fondly on how you can handle today's current snow removal situation when you think about having to pay more for more snow removal.
Right. So I when it comes to the bike pass, I can understand the idea, the logic of the authorities of the day, where they want to encourage people to get out of their automobiles, right? So and here we have a winter cyclist who's told us some tricks of the trade. I would encourage everybody to try it, if they feel confident enough to get on a bike and get out. I would not winter cycle without studded tires. Would you agree with that statement?
Pardon me?
Would you agree with that statement, Rick?
you'd be much more restricted in the conditions you could go out in. There
Right.
are some, if it's only snow, but if you look at the last couple of weeks, there's ice plated on the roads. It just,
Yes.
the snow is compacted. There are freeze thaw cycles. A knobby tire is just not going to have grip on that, and you will go down. So I would say anybody starting out, practice in a parking lot or a schoolyard, try one of the Bixies that have studded tires.
How much do you actually fall though?
I've not fallen at all in decades, but somebody who's learning, well, I think
Is
that
that like
when you,
just the process of learning, right? Like,
yeah, honestly,
turns can be hard.
a suggestion I would make is, and I don't know if it's realistic, and people probably would, a lot of people wouldn't want to do it, but if you get a Bixie or something like that,
It's not for everybody, that's for sure, right?
yeah, where get some knee pads and go in a schoolyard or a parking lot and like have fun. And if you fall, you get up and laugh about it. That's kind of how I learned to ride off-road motorcycles. And
yeah. But what I'm thinking is that you want studded tires.
yeah,
You definitely do not want to be cycling in a bike where you have clip-in like pedals.
oh no, yeah, key. I do not use any kind of clip-in pedals.
You want to have open toe so you can get your foot on the ground real fast, right?
Yeah.
You don't want toe
Also,
clips.
what about
Like the
boots
toe clips?
and,
Yeah.
Like, what kind of because we never really answered what kind of like physical gear do you wear? Like
gloves. You would need gloves.
Do you wear studded shoes? Like, how do you handle
I
ice?
have
footwear?
like some studded, like some crampon overshoes but I haven't really needed to wear those. I honestly, you don't, because you mentioned sweating, right? But if you don't overdress, I don't sweat much. Again, it's an e-bike. The e-bikes, if somebody's willing to either get on a Bixie or make the financial commitment to buy one, they're a bit pricey. It's a complete game changer because you can dial and I'm not talking about the ones that are like little motorcycles with a throttle. It's just like a bicycle, and you can dial the electric assist up or down. You can get as much of a workout as you want, or as have as much assistance as you want. And again, like you go to work in a suit, you dial up the assistance so you're not sweating. You can go over Mount Royal and be like that. So again, it's not. It's
go over
commitment.
Mount Royal in the winter. That's brave.
No problem.
I really don't see that as like a practical commute option for anybody, to be honest. That's kind of a sports activity. But wait, we're all talking about the challenges of cycling. Let's just take a second here. When I cycled in the summer, right, and I really enjoy cycling. I think it's a great way to. Holden talked about it. You don't have to worry about parking. You get where you want to go quickly. You don't have to pay for all this maintenance and fuel for an automobile. It's awesome. I think it's awesome. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of pleasure I take from that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you that question. When you winter cycled, right, is it something you enjoy, right? Is it something you find pleasurable?
I enjoy winter cycling more than I enjoy summer.
Why is that?
Some of the days are beautiful. You're like going down Terrebonne or whatever. There's like snow on all the trees. It can be gorgeous weather. Very often the streets are not slippery. Like the last few days, they've been rough. If you watch the videos I posted, you'll see, there's uneven, icy surfaces. There's like thick, kind of slushy, mushy snow and things like that. But there are many, many days when once you get the hang of it, and I'm not talking about being some kind of crazy expert. It's not that hard, and in nice conditions, there are things like if you're rolling along on a light snow. Actually, the light snow we just had this afternoon, there's this weird. It's completely silent, and you feel like you're riding on icing sugar or something. It's a really cool feeling. In terms of the cold, it's nowhere near as bad as alpine skiing, right? Like we all love a lot of people love alpine skiing. You're on the friggin' chairlift, you're waiting in line, you're going down the hill. I've never felt it to be that bad. What else is fun? If you get to the point like is not being a mega expert, but being comfortable. The whole, the same people like mountain biking because there's this bit of a skill, almost a playful aspect of it. There's a pile of snow. Like I'm saying, don't do this in front of the number 55 bus. But if you're like in a parking lot or something and there's a bit of snow, you plow through the snow and it's almost a little bit like being a kid again. So there is that playful aspect of it too, which if you can do it safely, is really, really special.
But how do you know when you see the pile of snow, right? How do you know if there's an anvil inside there or not? It could be hidden.
Oh, there's always an anvil inside there. No, again, it's a bit of it's a bit
this
of
this is a Roadrunner reference to all your Yagums out there, right?
Either that or there's a big stick of TNT. But no, it's again, common sense, right? There are piles of snow that look like they have anvils in them, and there's piles of snow where you figure, okay, there's a bit of a rut because of the cars we're driving here. Knowing what the temperature is like, is it likely to be frozen solid? Is it and if you're learning, it'll be a little rut and it'll be fresh snow, and there's not an anvil. If you're a bit more adventurous, like some of us, then and you're not in a situation where there's like a dump truck bearing down on you, you can like I said, people, there's something enjoyable about these things. And again, like we hear a lot on the social media pages, elderly people and disabled people are not gonna be able to do this kind of thing, and that's absolutely true. Like we need to be sensitive to, like, people have their own preferences.
They
have their own
pretty much every time.
Yeah.
Like
no, the flip side is like I've known a lot of disabled people, disabled veterans, and sometimes people in wheelchairs are there because they're adrenaline junkies and they don't stop when they're in a wheelchair. And I think you got to give credit. There's a guy in our neighborhood who clearly has severe functional limitations, is an electric wheelchair. This guy is like friggin' Mario Andretti. Like, I'm not talking, he doesn't drive around recklessly or fast, but he's so confident. I've stopped before and asked him, do you need a hand, in this snow? And he's like, no problem. Maybe he'll pull my car out of the snow sometime. So it just, I guess what gets to me a bit is, there are, like I said, I'm in my 60th year. I'm not 70 and I'm not 80. And those are the people that really are concerned. I have lived with a disability after this accident, like real functional limitations. But again, it's disingenuous to compare that to somebody who's got a permanent disability. It could be much more severe.
I just had to help a 90-something-year-old woman into the Uber and out the Uber. And when we get to the spot,
I mean, those are the
real. Like,
those are the people we're talking about.
Snowbank. She looks over. Her first, how am I gonna get around this? And we figured it out. We had to walk up a little bit, and it's mad inconvenient, but I don't know how to say this without coming off insensitive, but there's almost no way to predict for the inconvenience of where somebody with mobility issues is going to be at a specific level. It's not like people with mobility issues are all on King Edward and that is now the street for it, so prioritize that street first. It's more like, in fact, nobody really knows anything. If anything, they do have specialized homes for people with mobility issues. Like, look, my grandpa, who he just passed away, I'm going to his place to start dealing with stuff. That apartment complex is just people with various, I'm not able to be on my own issues. It's better to be in an environment that's built for that.
So nobody would suggest that all these people are going to start biking or that they don't need,
But those places that are designed for that do get priority on snow removal. When they do know about this, they are prioritized over regular residential streets, which is the last priority. So I think people just have issues when they have somebody in their life that has, or it's them, and they happen to live on a residential place because they're functional enough to move around and live their life. But then this is an impediment, but it's just like, I don't have a solution here.
Yeah,
this isn't something that people are ignoring. It's just that there really isn't we're not talking about making on-ramps for every business 15 years after the fact, it's weird that certain businesses still don't have good access for people with mobility issues. We're talking about dealing with the snow. And then sometimes in the middle of snow, more snow comes and you have to restart the process.
Yeah.
So here we have
Anyway,
an interesting
I'm very
conversation
passionate on this topic because I spent way too much time this week on it.
Thank you for sharing with us, and I my condolences for the passing of your grandfather.
But
there.
I'm only bringing it up because if it's really such an issue, don't stay on a regular residential street. Go to a specialized care facility or something like that if they exist. And maybe I'm talking ignorantly and I don't know what I'm saying, but like I don't know what the real solution is. I've thought a lot about this because like it comes up every single time.
Well, I think with the point you're trying,
ever forgetting about people with mobility issues. We're trying to actually just get all the snow removed quicker because that's best for all the parties involved.
Yeah, I think your point is that to a certain degree, like obviously as a society we need to assist those in need, but we all also have to work to help ourselves as well, right? Like. Or
at least like you can't stop or change the system for a random variable like that. Like unless how do you do this? Do you like put flags in front of people's houses where this is a priority? Like I've thought about the logistical implementation of this, and I really think the city has actually done a much better job at this than I have because they do this. But I just would love to know if people watching this, like, what is the real answer here for like, is it to, I guess, immediately clear the sidewalks? That's never going to happen. We don't have the money to pay all those extra machines. Like, I don't know. This is the rabbit hole I've been going down.
Well, the whole sidewalk, the whole sidewalk cleaning issue too is all tied up in civility as well. The level of infrastructure from the city. I remember several times, it was on Thrive as well. A woman was calling to people's civism because they were pushing their snow either from their driveways or when they cleaned off their cars onto the sidewalk, right? So, we all have a role to play, right? The city has a role to play. We pay the city taxes, right? So our expectations are these taxes are used to deliver, the best quality services possible. I can attest, personally, and I can attest from years of civic engagement that the city does not necessarily use our money in the most wisest of ways of all times. There's a lot of, as they say in French, gaspillage, waste. And I always think there's ways to improve. I think there's always room for improvement. Any private business that is involved in delivering services to customers knows that they always have to look for ways to improve the way they deliver services to their clients because they know their competition is, right? So this is just a continuous process, right? And I don't really think it's a catchphrase, continuous improvement. I just think it's the nature of the times we live in. And it's also the nature of how technology evolves, right? And the new technologies become available for snow removal. Like now, the borough has GPS in our snow removing equipment, so they know where they are and when they are. So there's a lot, that can be done. But I think it's time for a commercial break, though. And the commercial break today is sponsored by the City of Montreal and the Baby Bucket.
Oh my word! I had no idea when I saw this on Facebook. I know Alex was really sad because we were stealing all the attention when he released this.
So call now.
I had no idea what the hell this was. I think I didn't know what this meant. I didn't get it.
For your own personally baby bucket. It comes with your own baby hard hat. There's also one for mom and dad. See? Right? Protect you from the falling branches in CDNEG. Also comes with a series of detour signs. Right? So you could bring the life of living at home, right? Right? To your baby, your young family. It has traffic cones, of course, indispensable, and a lighter, right? Don't let the baby play with the lighter, of course, but it's for power failures, right? A common occurrence in CDNEG we have a lighter, and it comes with candles. So, ladies and gentlemen, the baby bucket. Call now. Get yours. While quantities last, of course. The baby bucket is a spoof that I did on the city. Remember, I was talking about wastefulness from the city, and the city, the mayoress, and some of her penguins, as I call them, came out with the What Bienvenue Baby, and it's a box of goodies to attract families to the city of Montreal. And I just thought, I just thought that was a silly PR exercise, because at the end of the day, families are not going to choose to live in the city of Montreal because a box of some $200 worth of goodies. They're going to live in the city of Montreal because it provides services and infrastructure that's attractive to families. So this was my little spoof, and I had a lot of fun with it. So I apologize.
Also,
Yes.
if we're going to talk about budget issues,
Right.
remember that this woman allocated 9 figures of this budget for Montreal to deal with animals, but dedicated $500,000 for homelessness and all this other stuff. But 9, and now I'm not anti-animal, and I know it sounds cold, but of all of our priority list of like stuff, it seems like a lot of money to go to dealing with abandoned animals, which is an issue caused by negligent Montrealers in the first place.
Yes.
You got to stop getting animals. I know it's a bit unrelated, but it is kind of related, because if we're going to have this conversation about budget issues, and people want to fix the lead in the water, which is a real issue, people want to fix the sewage issues, which is a real issue apparently if your house is getting flooded and insurance won't cover you.
Yes.
Maybe focus on actual budget items that are fucking preposterous. And remember how Valerie Plante fainted when she was asked about this and has not addressed it publicly since? But that's a real thing that also happened. So instead of scapegoating all of the issues on something like bike path, which I'm sorry, but there's no way that percentage of the snow removal budget is high, and that if all the money put towards bike paths was taken away, we would solve a fraction of these other giant costing issues people are mad at. But you know what might help? A 9-figure investment that went to animals. All love to animals. I'm a huge animal fan, but that's a preposterous use of money. Sorry to the animal shelters and shit like that. I know it sounds inhumane, but we got real homelessness problems. I don't know if you've seen how many people are standing there at intersections, walking through with your car, begging for money right now, risking their lives in the middle of blizzards. But it's a lot more intersections than it was a year ago.
So
anyway,
that's a great point. But back on snow.
It's a budget point too, right?
Yeah, it is a budget point. Yes, it is. It's a very important budget, and I agree with you 100%, Holden.
And I'm just saying, we need to focus on the budget in a broader issue, so that when you are back to snow, you're not saying a bunch of preposterous shit about how the budget gets spent, because it supports an emotional argument that you haven't looked into the broader budget. Because that's the thing about budgets, is that they're pretty broad and have a lot of categories, and you need to look at how all of them are getting spent, including snow versus garbage versus other civic issues we're dealing with.
So back to you, Rick. Thank you very much, Holden. Back to you on the snow, the whole winter cycling issue, and your experience cycling. So you basically have shared with us that you enjoy it. It's a positive experience. It gives you good exercise. Do you use your bike to commute to work? Is that the primary focus of your?
So it's actually a very nice bike ride over the mountain through.
So you go over the mountain. So that's not a joke.
The thing that you said was terribly impractical.
Okay.
But, to get to McGill.
So tell us your route. You live in Snowdon, right? Where in Snowdon approximately do you live?
Approximately near the Snowdon Metro.
Okay. I used to live near there, so I know it perfectly. How do you're getting to the Nero and McGill?
There's two basic ways to do it. One, the enjoyable way is to go up Queen Mary or wherever, and then
you actually ride on Queen Mary, or you go up Lacombe.
Not crazy about it, but if the time constraint to Queen Mary's okay, Lacombe is. Yeah, Lacombe. I'm one of these people who didn't ride on the bike path. But actually, with my kids, I would ride on Lacombe. But I'll ride on Queen Mary.
I don't like Queen Mary. You know why I don't like Queen Mary? Because when you get to the Auditoire Saint Joseph, the sidewalk pinches the street.
Yeah. There's that.
And I find that very dangerous, because you're traveling along, you get constricted, and I almost got clipped by a truck.
I know the spot you mean.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you get when you reach the cemetery, there's a shared pedestrian bicycle path,
Right.
there, which is actually really pleasant, and it's gravel. I kind of think it's nice riding on like a non-pavement surface.
It's plowed.
It's oh, I'm not sure if it's I don't use that much in the winter time, but you can, and it is plowed, so you can go along there, and in the summer or winter it's really nice, and then you can, aside from the construction at the Remembrance intersection, once you get on Mount Royal, it's a really nice, like, Olmsted Path is plowed all the time, and they put gravel down. You can get down there, and there's like a little shortcut you can take through the parking lots at Royal Vic. I shouldn't be saying this, on live air here, but
okay. But I gotta stop you. I'm confused. Yeah. You go up Queen Mary.
Yeah, Queen Mary.
And then what do you bank left at?
You bank right. So you'd get to the U of M entrance gates.
Yes.
And so if you cross the intersection and then along, there's the main entrance of the cemetery,
right?
And that there's the fence that at the boundary of the cemetery that goes toward Côte des Neiges.
Right.
There's a gravel shared bicycle pedestrian path.
You use that. You're using this in the winter.
In the winter, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So you're going right, and you go up Côte des Neiges. Is that what you're doing?
Well, you're following Côte des Neiges. You're riding on the bike pedestrian path.
Right.
And then there's like the funeral home at the end.
Yes.
There's like a little professional building.
Yes.
Normally you can cut right over to Remembrance. You go up Remembrance, and there's going to be, when the construction is done, there's actually a bicycle lane, like a non-car bicycle lane that the old other lane.
Yes.
Remembrance used to be two separate lanes.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
So when the construction's finished, you'll be able to bike up that, and then into Mount Royal Park. You can get in around.
So you're actually going over the mountain. You're actually going up.
Oh yeah.
And you're going past.
It's not that.
You're going past. You're going past Beaver Lake. You're going past Beaver Lake.
Yeah. That's not that.
And then you're going down to Camellia
Also
Hood.
remember e-bike.
Oh, okay.
IMG.
Okay.
That's like the really twisty road down.
But
I was having pulp. That's an insane ride.
Yeah, no, but up until you know what? A lot of people do it. A lot of people of all ages do it on non e-bikes.
Right.
And
people of all ages and who are in really good shape.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So and then the bike, the bike ride down through.
What?
I never hit that point of in shape on a bike to even do that in the best of conditions. On an e-bike, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that, and again, it's not, there's a whole like paradigm shift that I went through where, biking used to be kind of an athletic thing for me, and it's not anymore. For a while, I was transitioning. I was using a bike to get around, and not, not a racing bike, or not, I wasn't training or whatever. And then the interesting thing with the e-bike is that it just sort of morphed into this car replacement, where I decided not to spend a bunch of money on getting another car or whatever. I got the e-bike. There's some attributes, and again, it's like I don't want to turn this into a commercial for e-bikes or whatever, but they have fenders that work. Because you don't worry about them being lightweight because of the work. They are heavier. They are more robust.
I have to stop you just a sec. When you say an e-bike, you're talking an electric bike that is completely 100% self-propelled. You're not moving your feet at all, and nothing.
No. I want to be very clear, because that is not an e-bike, and it's a good question, because I'm talking about it's basically a bicycle that has pedals and a chain and a derailleur and all that stuff. You have to pedal it. It won't go anywhere if you're not pedaling it. But there is a little motor in the around the pedals, and you can set it. There's like 5 settings or something. You can turn it off, and you can ride it with no assistance. You can have a little bit of assistance or a lot of assistance, so that has legal implications, because to be able to ride that as a bicycle on a bike lane, or have it considered as a bicycle under like the Highway Safety Act, you need to be, you have to pedal to make it move. The motor has to be below 500 watts, and the speed assist has to be capped at 32 kilometers an hour, I think it is. So you will see people bombing around on these. They would also be called e-bikes, which are, like I said, you don't have to move your feet. There's a throttle. I think that there are people who override.
Those are like the Mars scooters.
Yeah, they look like scooters to me.
So, no, but I'm talking about.
But your e-bike, do you have to charge this, or is it self-charging when you move your?
Oh no, yeah, I wish, but no, you got to plug it in at night. So again, it's the same electric, and it comes down to the same thing.
Describe it, like, because I don't think like there's one. I tried an e-bike one time, and I got on, and when you pedal, it's like it's not what you're used to. It's like you push the car pedal and you just zoom. Like when your e-bike is on and it's at a decent power, it's because like you pedal, but then when you pedal, the motor just goes with it and goes and does a bunch of extra pedaling with you. So all of a sudden you're getting like twice the acceleration that you would normally get on the same effort. So really what it does is it's like assisted cycling, and it just does work with you, and it lets you pedal faster than you would actually be pedaling.
You feel like you're about 10 times fitter than you actually are. I think that honestly, that's what it comes to. You just feel like you're a bunch fitter and stronger than you really are. And I said, if you've got injuries or functional limitations or whatever, I found like it was life changing for me. That was an electric mobility aid. It made a huge difference.
Can we call it a healthy alternative to steroids?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Also, there's even like kits out there that like you can modify your existing bike and turn it into an electric one and things like that. So like, it's a pretty cool technology, and it's just battery powered like cycling. And if you get enough batteries,
but I guess it's
in Ottawa.
Yeah. But again, I see these electric scooters all the time on the bike path, and they're legal on the bike path. Yeah, I think that it's
I don't know actually what the legalities
I think they are because same thing with mobility scooters, like the old person mobility scooter. Like I think that it's more of a speed. It's safer for them to be on the bike paths than to be on the sidewalks or the road.
Yeah. Well, certainly
I see lots of folk who are more advanced than I in age tearing past me on their mobility scooters because they are aggressively driving in the bike paths. Like, get out the way, you slow cyclist. I'm like, fair enough.
So I think that
but that's actually a good point to pro bike paths and taking into account people with mobility issues. As time goes on, more and more people will end up with mobility scooters. The price will drop and all this other stuff. And protected bike path lane networking actually would increase mobility for people, especially if they're going to get snow plowed first.
So, Rick Hoge, thank you. I said it right? Hoge, right? I got it.
You're close. You're close. Hoge. Rhymes Rick with Hoge. I don't know.
Hoge.
Vogue.
Rhymes with Pogue. The Pogues.
Yeah. So, just think that.
Yeah. So. Rick Hoge, as in the Pogues. See, I got it now. I'm done. So I in conclusion to your winter cycling, I want to thank you very much for coming and joining us and talking to us about winter cycling, because I think a lot of times we see these guys on bikes and we're like, hey, that's it's like this phenomena. It's like the Chewbacca, right? We see them, we never really talk to them. You're like the mystery. Phenomena,
mystery weirdos.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call you a weirdo.
Yeah, no.
I just think that what we're seeing in the city of Montreal, and it's not unique to the city of Montreal. You're seeing this globally. You're seeing cities trying to move away from a car-centric view of the world. Something which I agree with. I think that automobiles have their place in cities. I drive a truck. I'm a general contractor. I need a truck in order to conduct my work. But I think that for our own health and the health of our city, to making cities livable, right? It can't just be about cars. It's got to be about pedestrians, cyclists. And I remember when I was a young man, right? We walked to school. We took our bikes to school, and one of the things that I think has happened during for the last 30 years is that our streets have become more and more congested, and people become more and more insecure about their safety in streets, and it's kind of this vicious cycle, right? Because we're feeling insecure and we're not feeling safe in our streets. What do people do? They get inside their cars because they feel safer. Oh, I'm going to be in a car like everybody else. And it's a vicious.
I don't even know. Like, when I actually think about that topic, I'm like, do you really all think that young people will be buying cars all willy nilly? Like, they can afford that? Because they can't. They can't afford houses.
Actually,
a lot of things.
That's the good news, right? That's the good news. A lot of millennials, and my son's ones that include, they haven't gotten their licenses, right? Because they can live in a city without an automobile. So I think that's
it's worth bringing up too, because. Like, the idea of being car-centric and worrying about parking is just privilege, to be honest with y'all. Like, it completely ignores poverty. Like, I grew up with poverty. Sometimes we couldn't afford a car. It wasn't like there was an option. If my parents for that year wasn't good with money and the car got broken, it might be 8 months of public transit and other alternative methods. So for me, what I hear a lot of is people who are doing pretty well in life. They're at the older ages. They've spent the last 40 years accumulating wealth, and they're the dominant political force, and they just kind of ignore the realities of young people and how they're not able to just cop cars as easily. They're not able to just get into this market like the way it was up until the boomers stopped selling houses, which is a real thing, and a few other shifts that changed a lot of stuff. So ironically, the boomers are responsible in a lot of ways for the scourge of people not being able to cop houses and buy cars and build that same kind of equity. Because
it's all the boomers' fault. That you're a boomer, Rick.
25 years longer than anyone was expecting. Back when the boomers were young, the average death rate was in the 50s. By the time the boomers got old, we gained 20 years of life. Nobody was expecting the boomers to live this long, but they did.
I'm doing my best to.
Hey, Rick, die already, goddammit.
Well, look, I'm out there. I'm a winter cyclist, right? So
I know it sounds preposterous.
You're working it. You're cycling in the winter, right?
It's a real thing.
Yeah, what you're saying, Holden, too, like, you know, one of the things I hear, and again, I want to be careful because I can't authoritatively say that bike paths or whatever are the answer to everything, but you know, we talk about homelessness and you know, cleaning a bike path is like a shameful waste of money when there are these bigger problems. But one of the things that you know, homelessness is related to things like financial planning and financial conditions and debt load and stuff like that. And you know, there are presumably people who you know, on the one hand, well, I got to have a car because it's too dangerous. You know, I need the dependence and it's too dangerous to get around any other way. And they're making that car payment, and you got the car payment and the rising rents and all that. Like, giving people options in how they get around, you know, could play an indirect role in just, you know, the affordability of life and including housing, right? So it's a
bike is cheap, right? You buy a bike, and if you have minimal mechanical skills, and there's Google, right? When we were kids, you know, you had to like go look up books and talk to people to figure out how to fix things. Now we can go on Google and watch videos.
So
you know, absolutely. One of the big,
it only cost me like $400 a year to repair my bike, and I never really dealt with it myself. I always just went to the bike store, and even then, it's not that expensive.
Right.
You don't I
would not advise people to do that. Well, you can go to the bike store, and that's great. But I'm always
Recycle Cycle. They've been
I'm always a guy who was always like.
Yeah, no, I mean, Alex looks like. I've also seen your train set up, so I know you in your modeling stuff. So I don't think you'd have too much trouble fixing a bike.
Personally, I represent all of y'all that, like, when you first change your tire by yourself on a bicycle, you're tripping a little bit because you're not sure if you did it right when you start biking.
That's
making mistakes is part of the process, people. You know,
but you know
how you learn.
Like this thing, it gets back
fuck
to
up.
something.
It's good. It's good to fuck up once in a while.
Absolutely, I know that from personal experience. What Holden, you were saying about with like electric cars and the need, the privilege aspect, to have an electric car, it's a lot better.
Forget electric car, a car, even $5,000,
any
right?
car.
Your options are to have that up front or predatory loans.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but there's a whole regime. I'm sorry, I got to get in here because I'm experiencing this with my own offspring. Is that there's this whole regime about car ownership, right? You have to get a license, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta buy an automobile. You have to pay registration. There's a lot involved in being an automobile owner, and I think talking to
and two sets of tires a year.
Oh, the tires are what made me get rid of my car. Like I just
a lot of expenses every time you go to the garage, and saying all the BS and like self gratification, whatever, you know what I'm getting at, stuff about fixing stuff. I don't fix my automobiles, right? I go to a garage because I don't have the tool sets, right, for that. Right?
Yeah. No, but this gets to something, right? Because it's great. One of the things I appreciate is that to have you could tell somebody, oh, you should get a bike, it's great. If you live in a walk-up apartment, you're certainly not going to want to carry like a heavy e-bike up. Even you may not even have the space to stash your bikes, and they get stolen. So I think there is a bit of a presumption, even for cycling, that a person is going to have like access to a storage space if they've got kids. Do you really have a place to put?
My girlfriend can't stand my bike being in the apartment, but it's I know right now it's behind.
Yeah, but you live in an older building, right? What year was your building built in Holden, right? Because you see. Yeah, your building was built in the 40s, 50s, right?
I got a pretty decent sized apartment, but it's still like you don't. We're not allowed to put up wall mounts according to the lease. It violates the drill the hole in the wall thing, and because of that, like my options are to leave it somewhere, leaning against something convenient for 8 months a year.
So, back on your comment, Holden. Your building was built in the age where the car was king, right? Like you had these huge boulevards, everybody wanted an automobile. Nobody questioned the how do you say, the miracle of the automobile, right? It was like a gift from the sky, the gods, right?
It was like the internet of that era.
And this is what happens with new technology, right? We're experiencing this on a different level right now. We're experiencing is the evolution of technology. One of the biggest problems that I think we're going to be facing as a society is, a lot of us, and I'm guilty of sin, we're getting too sucked into this virtual world, right? And we're losing the personal contact with people in our community, in our lives. I think that's going to become a serious problem in the future. And you're starting to see this now with the government starting to ban, smartphones in the classroom environments because they're too distracting, right? Well, distraction, right? Being distracted has become a malaise of, the 21st century. We're always on our phones being distracted by whatever, right? So, and the same, we went through the same process with automobiles. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. No. Cars came in, they were awesome. And then boom, we're like, whoa, these cars are killing us, right? It's too many. We're all jammed up. It's costing us billions of dollars a year because we're stuck in traffic. The pollution is suffocating us. Remember, there was even a time when they had lead in the gasoline. We were poisoning ourselves. Now, now it's not as bad, but it's still bad, right? So, I think we have to keep in context a larger conversation, right? That the cities are, at the end of the day, a city should be for living people, not machines, right? So I think that's the core of the argument, right? And
I want to just that's a really good point, and it brings to mind a couple of things I wanted to say. One is, one of the really nice things about biking in the summer is you're in and around people. I'll pull over and I'll say, hey, that's a really cute dog. What kind of dog is that? You're really you interact with people, and it's really nice, as opposed to being in the car listening to your tune, which is also great, right? And I guess my tangent is, for a lot of people, you're working some demanding job or whatever, having a car a nice car with this listening to music. It's like one of the only simple luxuries that people have, right? And so, and it can be really important to people. So I really empathize with like that being threatened. But another flip side is, and so I had done some teaching at MIT, and which meant I had the fortune and misfortune of living in Boston. It's an amazing city, a lot of parallels with Montreal. But Boston I was there in the early 2000s, and really it was American. It's very European, but it was American in the sense of the car is king. And if you're an adult and you get a and the big. I was there for the big dig.
I remember the big dig. Yeah.
Yeah, every adult has a car. It's just axiomatic, and Boston went through a big real estate spike than like we're kind of having now, and so you have like these affluent people who are have 5 roommates, and every single roommate has a car, and cars, like, it was dirt cheap to get a car there. Drivers, like, it's there's the thing, they're not taxed heavily and all that, and it's like, I don't think cars are evil, but that was an example of a city where kind of if everybody wants to have a car, and certainly they're right, and park it on the street, and the population density is getting higher for whatever reason, like, eventually, forget about bike paths, like the parking situation in Boston is something you can't even imagine. NDG is nothing. I mean, we lived in a place in a neighborhood called Brighton on Com Ave, and I used to routinely park my car about a mile away from where we lived, and it just, you go, cars after, like, even all the illegal spots are taken, like, and imagine being a contractor there. It was very, very difficult. Like, all the liberties that you might take here, like double parking or parking a little illegally, you can't do that because this is just, the residents are double parked, and
being a contractor in the city of Montreal when it comes to parking is, especially in the winter, like you talked about obstacles, right? So now we're moving equipment around. Now we got to deal with snow, and then NEG is not bad, but south of Sherbrooke to Maisonneuve, really bad. And then God forbid you have to do a job in the plateau, right? It's like, it's brutal, and the streets are narrow. I've almost been clipped because I have a truck, right? And I was almost clipped by trucks because they're barreling on the street. I have to go, slow down, guy, you're gonna hit me. And what I really want, I tell you what I want. What I want is for everybody else to get their car, but I get to keep mine.
No, that's it. So, but for me, like, the punchline of that, the anecdote about Boston is that, and that, at the time, there was no bike lanes, no nothing. But if you don't provide options that allow, like, a lot of people to say, yeah, maybe I'll have a car, maybe not. That's kind of I'm not an expert in this, right? Would it happen in Montreal? I don't know, but it seems, if the population keeps growing and cars are easily accessible, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that's not, but eventually you just run out of spaces to put
especially just to add to that, like, condos are coming up everywhere, and those are big buildings that house a lot of people, whether or not they own the place or not. But you just got to look at, like, some of the areas. Like, I do Uber, and, like, some of these buildings have indoor parking, but everybody knows indoor parking has limits, and not everybody gets a spot. So there's just all these areas where the population is going up by hundreds and hundreds in, like, blocks, but there's no additional parking provided to anyone. So big picture, it is going to become a problem. Like, just look at the Elmhurst area right there. How many buildings popped up out of nowhere? It's not like there was more street parking.
Yeah, but again, the takeaway I've gotten from the city planners is that you want to have density. The density is a good thing, because you start having density, it rationalizes investments in public transportation infrastructure, right? Because the problem when you have with urban sprawl is that when people start going out farther away from the city center, right? And the distance between each person increases from a person per kilometer, right? Density, right? It becomes much more expensive to install public transportation infrastructure. But saying that, what I have noticed since the pandemic is that I think cities will change away from it won't be a uniquely a central city centric model anymore. I think you're going to have like sub communities, because the need for people to commute to an office tower is now being reduced. It's no longer at the like it was in the 80s and the 70s and 60s. So I think we're going through a transformative phase right now. There's a lot of different stuff and trends that are happening that's related to the way people are living and what kind of lives they're leading, how they're working, and our relationship with technology and machines. And I think that there's going to be this friction, right, as we kind of like make this transition collectively, and there's going to be bumps along the road, of course, for sure. Well, wow, that was great. And Rick, this is something. Rick Hoge, like the Pogues. I wanted to say that this project that Holden and I have been, and Holden has been great. He's wearing his pickle merch, by the way.
Nice.
There he's over there. Yeah. Can you want to give us a little rundown your pickle merch there, Holden?
Oh, my underwear, my pickle underwear. Holden.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to go. He's wearing his pickle sweatshirt.
Pickles. The short version is, one day I was freestyling songs on the internet, and people were trying to tell me how I can't make a song hating on pickle chips, which are very bad. I don't know why people like them. And then that turned into a whole anti-pickle movement in my life, to which people tag me in pickle-related content almost every day for well over a year now. When people tag you in something every day, capitalize on it, because you're foolish not to. So this is my brand. You can get the anti-pickle. Then if you like pickles, we have a pro pickle design as well. And we have one in the middle. If you see, that is kind of like a split of the two designs, because there's people who are all like, I like pickles, but not on my sandwiches, but I like eating them raw. And like, they just give you their whole life story with pickles, and nobody ever asked for that at any point in time. All I have to say, fuck pickles. I have a personal vendetta with that shit. And it's a very polarizing topic. And really, it's because people who like pickles bully people who don't like pickles. And like,
oh my god, it's terrible. It's a real thing. We need a safe space for pickle haters. Thing.
I'm just saying, if I say no pickles, it doesn't mean you get my extra pickles instantly. Like, that's not how the universe is supposed to work. Or I don't need a lecture about my childish palate every time I order food. I know I have a childish palate. I'm in my 30s. I'm aware. But isn't that the whole point of personal choice?
Rick, you're wearing pickle underwear. What's this about?
Yeah, sorry, I can't hear you. The connection's going real bad right now.
Oh, okay. You mentioned something about pickle underwear.
No, I was joking. It was just.
I took the joke. I followed that.
Actually,
I'm sorry. I didn't catch that. It went over my head.
I do have pickle underwear. Anyway, there's a story you don't want to hear about those. So.
Oh, it's a pickle underwear joke. Oh my God, we're not asking you for those. Okay, so Rick, on that note, we're starting something, trying to build something here in the community, and I want to thank you very much for participating. And what we do as well is we take kind of the funniest and more interesting clips of this podcast, and we'll post it on Thrive on Facebook. And it does get
hold on, one day when we have that nice Patreon up and running and y'all are financing us a bit, we're gonna hire somebody on Fiverr to really go through the episodes and make proper clips.
That's right, and so it's a lot of fun. And I want to thank you very much for participating, because you're a winter cyclist, and I thought that was a great perspective to have and to share your experience, and to share that it was enjoyable, that you enjoy it, and it's a lot of fun, and you encourage other people to try it out safely, of course. Helmets. Don't
try to do anything stupid, or that you're not. Respect your comfort zone.
Yeah.
The thing about a bike is you can always hop off and walk it on the sidewalk, like anytime. It's if it feels like it's too much.
For me, the biggest takeaway is that if you do alpine skiing, you can winter cycle, right?
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with skiers, You can winter cycle.
Basically,
If you're-
a good
It takes way more
program.
skill to alpine ski than it does to ride a winter bike. But the
There you
stakes
go.
are higher when there's a bus behind you.
Yes. Well, don't be in a position where there's a
Yeah,
bus
that's-
behind
yeah,
you. I
avoid
guess.
those
I-
situations.
yeah.
You are going to be in a position where there's a bus behind you because of the current Montreal infrastructure of biking.
All right.
That's
So
the reality of it all.
So, I hope that when we send you an invite in the future, that you could be available to be on the show again and discuss these issues
it's
again.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
Shooting breeze with you
Because
guys.
we didn't really talk about it a lot, but apparently Richard over here is quite the accomplished individual with one of those CVs that looks like very few people really get to accomplish as much as you've done.
MIT, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I'm sorry, but like very
Rare.
few people get the amount of
Rare.
accomplished. Like you were
Harvard.
in MIT, you went to Harvard. Already, you're in a.
Yeah,
very
I didn't
limited
go to
group of
Harvard.
people.
I worked at Harvard. There's a big difference.
You still
Yeah.
physically went to Harvard.
Yes, your
Yeah.
body was there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like whatever, but you're working at these
Yeah,
institutions.
no,
that
they're
are
great
limited.
experiences. I'm
And then
really
you became an
privileged
SQ
to have done a lot of
officer
stuff.
on some random stuff. Like, how does that happen? That's not average. If you look at your life, it seems like you've got just your CV is pretty popping, pretty
Thank you,
accomplished.
thank you.
Thank you very much. So, to everybody out there in NDG land, I
Make
wish
sure to
you-
like, comment, follow
Yes.
it. Thank y'all for
Yeah.
coming through on the live. Make sure
Tell
if
your
you're watching
friends.
this in the future to
That's
leave
right.
some comments on the video. We need all the engagement we have. Let's be honestly real. This is very local news. This only succeeds on the efforts of all of y'all telling people to pull up Tuesdays at 6 p.m. for the Trainman Report, where we cover the most local of local news you're going to find in NDG. Maybe Joel's out there doing it too, but that's a different kind of news. I digress.
awesome. So
Thank
next
y'all
time
for
you're,
being-
we're
Yeah, go
going.
ahead.
I just gonna say next time you see a winter cyclist on the road, wave hello, say goodbye, and say hello. Right? It could be Rick later.
Could be. Live long and
See,
prosper,
guys,
everyone
thank you
out
so
there.
much for the invitation and for everything you're doing for engagement in the community.